Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour à tous. Bienvenue au webinaire Skygroup Utelogy. Bienvenue à tous dans cette session qui va durer à peu près 1 heure. Je m'appelle Nicolas Jean, je suis le directeur général de Skygroup. Et vous pourrez, pendant cette présentation, poser des questions dans le chat. Alors, un petit mot de mise en garde. Une partie de cette présentation sera faite en anglais. Cette présentation sera rediffusée ensuite sur YouTube dans l'après-midi avec le nouveau mode de sous-titrage de YouTube extrêmement puissante qui vous permettra de débunker ou de mieux comprendre cette présentation au cas où votre anglais n'est pas suffisant. Nous allons donc porter une attention toute particulière à parler lentement lorsque nous parlerons en anglais. So, let me introduce everybody here today. Hand over now to Jonathan.
Thanks, Nicola. I'm Jonathan Mangnall. I'm Managing Director for Utelogy in EMEA. I'm going to be running through the value proposition for the platform today, and then I'll hand over to George, who will give you a technical overview. George is our Technical Director for EMEA, and he'll give you a technical overview of the platform today as well.
George?
Hi, bonjour. My name is George. I am the Director of Operations for Utelogy in EMEA. So I look after the technical side of our business, so both helping you deploy the platform, support and training, and then finally customer success, where we make sure you see value from our platform, both yourself and your potential customers.
Et à toi, Luc.
Bonjour tout le monde, donc Luc Barré, donc expert avant-vente chez Skygroup et délocalisé dans le sud, à Marseille. Donc je souhaite à tout le monde une bonne visualisation.
Très bien, nous allons donc pouvoir commencer donc cette présentation. Jonathan, please do talk slowly for our French guest today. So let's go. We'll start on now with the presentation and the slideware. Nous allons donc démarrer la présentation immédiatement.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and apologies for doing this in English, and I will speak slowly, but please, if you have any questions as we progress through the presentation, please let us know and we'll answer those as we go along. So, yes, we are Utelogy. We are a workplace management and monitoring system. We're completely software-based, and really importantly, we're agnostic. We're agnostic to all AV and UC manufacturers, and also to all integrators, partners, managed service providers. So we're a truly agnostic platform. The aim of the platform is to create a better working world using what we term actionable intelligence and data-driven decisions. By that, we mean we want to take information from the equipment that we're monitoring and allowing our service providers, our end user customers, to make better and more informed decisions about how their estate is performing, how it's working, all of that sort of thing. Importantly, the conversation normally starts around the break-fix cycle. Something's broken, we need to run really quickly and fix it. And it's, something flashes red, we need to go and make it better. But from there, we're collecting lots of other information, which is really important to many different stakeholders in the organization. And it may be about utilization, it might be about performance, it might be about occupancy, but we can have lots of data that enables all of the people using the platform to make better and more informed decisions. That's what we're about. We're a software-only platform, so we don't provide any hardware. And basically, all we need is for the devices that we're supporting to be on the network, for them to have an API. And we'll tell you a little bit more about how we connect to those devices as well. And
Can you tell us a bit about the history of Utelogy before we start going into the slideware?
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, Utelogy's actually been around quite a long time. We've been around for probably about 15 years now, but in our current iteration, probably about 5 or 6 years. We started out life as a software-based control platform. We're a US company based in California. The primary function of the company was to deliver control, so similar to Crestron, AMX, QSC, but in a software defined way. We realized a number of years ago that there wasn't a control problem in the market, and the real challenge was around agnostic management monitoring, but with control. And that control element is really important. And as we tell you a little bit more about the story, you'll understand why that is important. But that background is where we come from. I think importantly, all of the people in the company are from the AV and UC world. So we understand, whilst we're a software company, we understand some of the nuances, the peculiarities of the AV and UC world, and the fact that there are no current standards in that space. And that's really one of the unique challenges of our market, and one of the things that we're very keen to address.
Thank you.
Okay. So what are the key things that we're looking for? And this slide here really identifies our value proposition. We want to reduce the time that it takes to fix something. So we're talking here about 75% what we call mean time to resolution. And that's an improvement of 75%. And these figures have come from one of our global customers. They have over 6,000 rooms deployed across their estate. And we've managed to reduce this time over a 60-day period to a 75% improvement in that mean time to resolution. That is a big number, but it's a big number because if you go from having no tool set and no management platform, you can really quickly show a dramatic improvement. And one of the things I always say, that with no visibility of your technology, you will have a problem, and your time to fix it will be significant. The other thing we're showing here is the savings due to self-healings. This is the 67%. And again, this is from the same customer. One of their challenges is that they were having lots of tickets raised due to fairly simple problems. And this particular problem was around screens going to the wrong input. That caused a ticket to be raised. That incurred a cost, and it took quite a long time to resolve that. So a 67% reduction in costs because we're able to what we call self-heal. That means we can fix problems before a ticket gets raised, and particularly before they become apparent to the user. And that's the really important thing, is that we're turning service management from reactive, we call that hero-based, to something that is proactive. And that's a big part of our proposition, turning everything from reactive to proactive. The other element here that we're showing is 44% reduction in energy utilization, and that's by providing automated turning off of devices. And I said earlier that we're a control company. We still have that control capability. So, a couple of the things that we do automated testing, so we can turn equipment on and off and put it into a user state. But we can also turn equipment off when it isn't being used, put it into standby, or turn it permanently off using managed power devices. And we can not only save significant amounts of energy, but we can report and record that and show that within the platform, which addresses most companies' sustainability goals. And that's a really important aspect of what we can do. We'd call that a byproduct. It is part of the functionality of the platform that allows us to deliver this extra capability. So this is what we're about. This is just a real quick summary of the value proposition. And then running down, what is Utelogy in essence? And basically, our aim is to provide a secure underlying platform that will bring all of your AV and your UC equipment into a single platform. It's going to reduce friction, it reduces operational costs, and it optimizes the efficiency of the people that are looking after that. And it gives you the ability to make better and more informed decisions. So what are we looking to do? We want to lower your operational costs. We want to provide a full unified 360-degree view of all of your audio visual and unified communications estate wherever it is in the world. And that's something that most organizations don't have. We want to maximize uptime, obviously. We want to provide quantitative insights. We want to provide real data which allows you to make better decisions. Really importantly, because a lot of our customers are large global organizations, we're also very secure and we're enterprise grade. We see lots of other maybe proprietary systems which maybe don't meet this enterprise security needs, but a big part of what we talk about is security. The fact that we sit on our customers' network is really, really important. And as I said at the start of this conversation, we're agnostic. We're agnostic to manufacturer, to integrators, and to our partners. And that's a real key part of what we're doing. So let me tell you a little bit about our ecosystem. So we have the ability to manage and monitor all of these hardware manufacturers on the right here. This is just a small list. We have the ability, something over 1,000 devices that we're able to manage, and we've got something like 4,000 drivers that supports that. So we're managing and monitoring all of these devices natively. We also recognize that a lot of these manufacturers also have their own proprietary management platform. Some of them are cloud-based, some of them are native to the device, but we're also able to manage and monitor those proprietary systems as well. And you can see that, you know, whether it's PolyLens, NeatPulse, the Graph API from Microsoft for the Teams environment, XIO Cloud if you're using Crestron, but all of these things, we're complementary to them. We're not competing with them, but we are the single pane of glass. We sit above those and bring all of that information into our platform. So the other part that we're doing is we're also managing and monitoring the calling platforms, and predominantly that is Zoom, Teams, WebEx. So we can bring information back not only from the devices, not only from the management platforms of those devices, but also the management platforms of the calling systems as well. So all of those are brought into the Utelogy ecosystem. And then really importantly is that most organizations that we work with already have a sophisticated and robust and very capable AV service management methodology. And they'll often have a ticketing system, an ITSM, IT service management system, which is currently running. And we can, sorry, this slide isn't working. Why is that not working? Sorry. There we go. There we go. So yes, we have the ability to integrate to all of these service management platforms. This is just a sample as well. So we have an open API that we can integrate to. We actually already have native ServiceNow integration, and a number of our customers have also done their own integration to their own ticketing system as well. But as you can see there, this becomes a complete ecosystem. It isn't just about the individual devices, it's about the devices, their management platform, the calling platforms, and the IT service management platform as well. And everything that we do fully integrates to give you this complete holistic capability.
A quick question for me, Jonathan, if I may. Do we need to have the property management like Polylens or NetPulse in order to drive and control their devices? Do we have to have the two together in order this to work?
No, not at all, no. We can, as long as the device has a native API, we can talk to it directly. Many of our integrations directly to the hardware are as good, if not better, than some of them through the proprietary platforms. One of the things that you will see is that some of the proprietary platforms, Polylens, for example, there are certain features in their system that sits behind a paywall. So if you want to have people counting with Poly, you have to pay for that additionally via Polylens. But there's a lot of stuff that we can do natively with Poly without that. So to answer your question, no, you don't need those. But if you have them and there are additional features, we can bring it all in to that single pane of glass.
I've got another question. Can we control also PCs, MTRs, or any other type of terminal, like a PC or a Mac-based solution?
Absolutely. Mac's not at the moment, but PCs, absolutely. So an MTR is effectively a Windows IoT PC, but we put on an agent, we call it uComputer, and we'll show you a diagram shortly that actually identifies that. But yes, any Windows-based MTR, we can put uComputer on that and control that device as we can any other Windows device.
And what about Android?
Yeah, I mean, all of the Android devices, we have a capability. So, I mean, Polylens is Android, Logitech Rally Bar is Android, Neat is Android. So a lot of these, we can manage all of those. And again, either via their API, and we can talk a little bit more about the specifics of that, but every one of those devices is fully manageable. And really importantly here is that, this list on the right talks about a lot of the major manufacturers that are out there. We have lots of others that we also work with, but what is really important is that we have great relationships with these people. They don't see us as a competitor. They see us as augmenting what they produce from their management platform. So they will actively work with us to ensure their API is as rich as it needs to be. The information that the API is providing is important, it's relevant, and it's what we need, but it's what our customers are asking for. So we're working in a kind of a symbiotic relationship with a lot of these manufacturers to ensure that the API that they're providing, the data they're providing is appropriate and can be displayed in our platform, but is also important to our customers.
We've got a question. Sorry to interrupt again. We've got a question from Leron. What about Room OS from Cisco?
Room OS?
Yeah, Room OS device from Cisco.
I'm not sure, George.
Yes. So Room OS essentially is the operating system that runs on a Cisco device. Okay. We have the ability to integrate to the Cisco API, and we are also adding Cisco Control Hub functionality to this as well. So you can come either directly using the native API or through Cisco Control Hub.
Very good. Thank you very much, George. Carry on.
Anyone else? We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Excellent. Okay, let me just move on. This is a little graphic. We call this our wheel of pain or wheel of shame, but this identifies a lot of the problems that we currently see in the AV world. And kind of from the top here is importantly that historically, the user experience for AV and UC hasn't been as good as the users would like. And that's a fact. And this information isn't stuff we've made up. It's come from our customers. Our customers have told us that these are the primary problems that they have. They don't have enough support people. The number of rooms is increasing. What you don't want to have to do is to have more people to manage them and support them every time you provide more rooms. We recognize that many of our customers have hundreds and thousands of rooms across their estate, and a lot of this is legacy equipment. It's equipment that's been there for a long time, and they have different equipment in different parts of the globe. As standards change, as needs evolve, they'll have equipment they installed maybe 5 years ago, some stuff they installed last year, last month, and what's going to be installed in the future. Importantly, we can manage all of that estate. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, and a lot of organizations don't have a process for service management. So, often when they start talking to us, this is really, something that they can build into a new process and develop that process. And also sort of methodologies for maintenance, for asset management, for inventory management. We can add significant value there where people have deployed a number of rooms over a long period with different integrators. Sometimes there is no standards around that asset management piece, and people don't have asset management at all. And we see constantly when we ask for a bill of materials that people don't have that information. So being able to provide that is a critical part of what our customers are asking for as well. So again, something that people don't necessarily start thinking about, but when they see the other advantages of the platform, it's something that becomes really, really important. The other one is no defined service levels. So people don't have clearly defined service levels, and therefore a tool like this really does help them with some of that stuff as well. This one here is really important, is that the modern workplace is changing. We're seeing obviously an increase in people using video and collaboration, and the expectation now is that it should just work. People do what we're doing. They use video collaboration all day, every day. So it's as ubiquitous as IT. So it has to perform in the same way that IT performs. So that's a 99.9% uptime expectation. And that change in the modern workplace is something that is really critical. And, we have to meet the expectations of the current users. And this also is really important, is understanding utilization. Most organizations, they deploy equipment, it gets used, it breaks, somebody fixes it, but nobody understands how it's used, when it's used, and if it's used. And when people decide what their next generation of meeting spaces look like, it's normally based on a brighter, shinier, faster version of what they had before. Whereas what we're providing here is real insight into how this equipment was used, if it was used, when it was used, and even by whom. So by providing that information, it provides all of the stakeholders with really important data that allows them to make a more informed decision about what the next generation of meeting rooms should look like. So this is a really good methodology for sitting down with an end user customer, identifying what their problems are and working through that. So in summary, what are we doing? We're controlling and monitoring. We're reducing the total cost of ownership of an estate. We're providing reports and an analysis and analytics of all of the spaces, understanding how they're used, when they're used, if they're used. And then really importantly, we have this ability to provide automated testing and turning the service management from, as I said earlier, from reactive to proactive. And this is just a very quick example of the reactive methodology. Is that people are in a meeting, they've got a meeting starting at 11 o'clock. The first presenter goes to start. There's a problem with the equipment. Somebody gets called to the room. Hopefully they're able to fix it. But as you can see in this instance, 25 minutes later, the equipment's fixed. The problem is that that's disenfranchised a lot of the people that are in the meeting room. It's put pressure on them. The experience is already bad. It costs a huge amount of money to have people in a meeting and not optimized and not working. But really importantly, that user experience is always bad. By turning this from reactive to proactive, what we do here is that we're not checking the room, or the user isn't checking the room 5 minutes before they're meant to use it. We're running an automated test. In this case, you can see it's in the middle of the night. We're running this automated test. We find there's a problem. This is via our Umanage platform. We can resolve the problem, and we can do that by a number of methods. We can do it by a self-healing scenario. We can do it using our remote tech tool. But importantly, by the time that the user gets there, everything is working. So that's really what we're all about, is turning this from reactive to proactive. And then very quickly to finish up, and I'm going to hand over to George, who's going to give you a quick practical overview of what the platform looks like. This is the architecture. So a couple of things to note. We are a software-only platform. Everything that you see here with a U in front of it is a part of that platform. It's sold on a subscription basis. It's a cost per room per month. And the majority of our licenses, we call it a pro license. It is up to 20 devices. There are other license types, but for now, let's just focus on that. So this is the Utelogy ecosystem, and there are two key elements here. One is we call uServer, and that is the on-prem or on-network data collector. It's a small server application that sits on a Windows server. Depending on the number of rooms, depends on the specification of the server. But this is the device that collects all the information from your AV and UC equipment. And how does it do that? It does it by, we create drivers. So a really important part of the platform is that there is no programming. So deployment is really quick, really straightforward once we've gone through some of the basic parameters. So the way that we talk to the device in the room is by creating a driver. We've got literally thousands of drivers. And just as an example, this is, again, a cross-section of some of the major manufacturers that we work with. We have a lot more, but pretty much everything that is best in breed, we have drivers for. So we create drivers that allows us to configure against all of those devices. And going to the question earlier, if you have a PC in the room, we then can manage that using uComputer. So in the case of an MTR, we can manage that device as we can all other devices. So that's a really important factor. So once we start collecting that data from uServer, it then passes up to Umanage, which is effectively, that's the dashboard of the system. That's the pretty front end that will sit in, if you're a managed service provider, will sit in your network operations center, but it is also shared with the end user customer as well. But that sits in the cloud, that sits in Microsoft Azure. We have a presence in multiple data centers around the world. So we're taking care of data sovereignty. We're ensuring that we have limited latency by having a data center in all of the key geographies. But from Umanage, this is where all of the rooms are managed. So you have full visibility of your whole estate. George will show you how we can set up specific dashboards to address the needs of the user. And at this point here, we can also configure the automated testing routines. We can use our remote tech tool to fix equipment. But importantly, we can also integrate to other parts of your ecosystem, like your IT service management platforms, ServiceNow, etc. So we can, from here, link to the rest of the service management in your organization. We also have the ability to output our data into other BI platforms. The most common is obviously Power BI. So the data that we have, we display natively in our dashboards. But if you wanted to take that data and manipulate it for other reasons, maybe to provide weekly or monthly reports to customers, to end users, then you can do that as well. So that is a very quick overview of the value proposition, why we do what we do, and the system architecture. But I'm going to hand over to George. But if there's any questions,
yes, there is actually. We've got a few questions, and I've got one as well. First, how do we manage rooms which are in full BYOD or BYOM mode? Bring your own meeting or bring your own device. How can we be proactive when the room is run in such a way?
Okay, well, I guess the key thing there is that we're not managing the device that's been brought, so that we don't manage that personal PC, but we manage all of the hardware. So, you know, in a typical environment for BYOD, it might be a Rally Bar, it might be a Poly X series. We can manage all of those devices natively through their API. In the case of, and I'll give a specific example, a Poly X series, we can manage it, we can turn it on, we can turn it off, we can generate a test tone, we can check the audio levels, we can check the microphone levels, and at the end of the day, we can turn that off in its entirety together with the screen. And if there are any other peripheral devices in that room, maybe a wireless presentation devices, a click share or something like that, we can manage that as well.
Another question is, how about sovereignty and data centers? Where are stored the data of the users in Europe, in the US? I think it's important to explain, you know, what data Utelogy collects and where, because Utelogy doesn't capture, you know, personal data or is RGPD, you know, conform. But maybe we can talk a bit about this.
Absolutely. Well, the data centers, they're set in Microsoft Azure, so they comply with all of Microsoft's Azure security protocols. So we have data centers, multiple data centers in the US, Canada, UK. For Europe, it's served out of the Netherlands. We have it in the Middle East, in South Africa, in Singapore, and in Australia. I think that's all of the data centers. So yeah, we have them around the globe, and I think I said earlier that is for two reasons: one, for data sovereignty, but also to reduce any latency, you know, across the globe as well. So yeah, we have all of those data centers.
A quick question: we haven't spoke much about control and user interface. I think it's important to talk a little bit about this.
So we do have a control capability, but it's not something that we would focus on. You know, it is a capability, and we use it for remote control via the tech tool. We can set up a control in a meeting room, but it's not something that we particularly focus on. We have a number of customers that do use it for, you know, certainly in education as well. They're using it, but it's not a primary part of the platform.
Okay, what I meant is that we can create with Utelogy a single user interface in the tablets in the meeting room. So whatever hardware, people have the same user interface in the end.
Yeah, we can do, but as I say, it's not. I mean, most people have they're committed to a control platform of choice. But if somebody wanted to talk to us about control, yes, we can. You know, using a any panel that renders HTML5, we can deliver a fully functioning control interface in the room. Yes.
Thank you. All right, I think we are good. I
Yeah,
think it's for you, George, to press on with the demo now, unless there is anything else we need to say.
No? Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Very good.
Perfect.
You tell me,
So-
George, when you need to put the audio on.
Yes, I will do. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Nicola. Okay, so what you can see on screen now is uManage. So this is our cloud-hosted instance. Currently, the environment we're looking at is our office in the UK. And again, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the platform, some of the key elements that we can showcase, as well as how we can perform some of that, both reactive, fixes in the room, but also how we can implement proactive in that measure. So when we get notified about the system, we can fix it, but also detect those before a user goes to that space. So the first page that we come to when we log in, and our login is supported through both by default multi-factor authentication, and we also support single sign-on for users that require that as part of their policy. The first page we come to is going to be our dashboards. So our dashboards, when you first start up the system, you get given a standard pack of dashboards, which is comprised of 7. However, you have the ability to both create your own, as well as modify any of the existing dashboards that come with the platform. So I'm going to give you a quick run through of some of the data we can capture and we can output, and then we'll jump into actually how we can start looking at where these alerts sit, how we can fix those issues, and also run some of those automate proactive room checks. So the first dashboard that we're going to look at is going to be our general overview, which gives us, well, a general overview of the system. So for example, here you can see we've got, where my alerts are on a map. I can see things like, how many rooms I have. So just an overall summary, 8 rooms, 2 are in use, 2 have alerts, and we're monitoring 8 rooms on the platform out of that 8. We can also start to see some sort of high-level overview of the asset data, so actually how many of each manufacturer we have on the account. And again, I'll show you a bit more detailed overview in a second. Coming down, we get our first glimpse of the alerting function within the platform. And again, this is the flashing red light that something's gone wrong and needs attention of a service desk operator. So you can see here we've got 3 types of alerts. Currently in our system, we've got a Bose device, which is currently not connected to the network, so Utelogy cannot communicate. We have a Microsoft device, which is completely healthy, other than it's not signed into Teams. So currently that system would not operate, and essentially we detected that without someone going into the room and seeing the sign-in page. We've also then got a NEC display where currently the system's warning us that the video mute is enabled. So this is where we can have different categories of alerts, and depending on what that message is, we may need either a technician to go and fix that, or we can self-heal that. And again, I'll show you the self-healing example as we go through. The final piece on our general overview dashboard is starting to move away from the what's going wrong right now, but looking at the historical alerting. So what has been going wrong in my platform? What's been the biggest cause of pain? So for example, here you can see 45% of my alerts are connection-based, where Utelogy cannot see that device. However, the majority of my alerts actually come from different sources. So displays being switched off. I've got things where self-healing scenarios. So 15% of all of my alerts have been healed automatically with no intervention from a user. We can even see some things in here like environmental data, which we can gather from certain AV devices, and we can actually report on and alert those to potentially different teams. We have the ability to route those alerts based on the configuration. If we keep moving down through the dashboards, we have a very simple dashboard here, but again, it's what I would use if I were using the platform as a service desk operator. How many rooms do I have? How many of those have alerts? And what are the alerts I need to go and fix? We can look at a more detailed review of our alerting history. So how many alerts have I had this year, this month, this week? So I can actually go and fix those problems at the source rather than keep fixing the same alerts over and over again. Again, I want to reduce the number of alerts that I get, each month. We can also break down our assets. So you can see here, again, our office is fairly atypical for a customer because we have one of everything in our space, whereas obviously you would have a breakdown here based on how many of each one of those assets you have, and essentially we can report on that to the client. We can also see some high-level room information. So how many rooms have I got? What categories of rooms have I got? Which one of those categories causes me the most number of alerts? Elements like that we can actually pull into the platform as well. The next two dashboards actually move away from the conversation around alerting or issues with devices. And here we're actually looking at the usage of the system. So specifically, the usage dashboard gives us that. And we break that really down into two key elements. So firstly, room usage. How long has my system been in use for? We can categorize that based on the information we have available, but typically we would connect this to occupancy, either from the camera bar in the space, or the microphone, or a dedicated sensor. And you can see how often our spaces have been used over the last week. Coming down, we can also pull, as Jonathan mentioned, from the cooling platforms, the usage of those systems. So moving away from, is it just occupied, but how is that space being used? Are people going in there and not using the technology, just sitting in the space? Or are they going in there and having meetings or sharing their screens? Again, we can capture all of that data and report that back. So you can see, which one of your spaces is used the most, and also report that back to the client. And then the final standard dashboard is going to be our power usage dashboard. And this one essentially gives us the overview of the system, where we can see how much power we've used, and also more specifically how much power we've saved by using either Utelogy or implementing other power saving methods. So when we look at this, we've got display power usage for last week in our office. We'll look at this tile specifically. If our systems were left on 24/7 last week, our systems at an estimate would have used 51.9 kilowatt hours. Because we turned our systems off using Automate to do our power saving, we actually only used 23 kilowatt hours. So last week we saved 54% of our electricity. And this is calculated based on the amount of time the system is switched on, and also the metrics that the manufacturer provide about how much power it uses out of the box. As mentioned, you can also create custom dashboards. For example, here you can see how many self-healing scenarios have we taken place. And again, you can see today we've already had one, and at the end of the demonstration, I'll show you we're going to have more than that, because as we run through, it will fix itself automatically. So moving away from dashboards, we're going to look at rooms, and this is specifically where we have the ability to be able to come in and actually go all the way down to device control, but also learning information about that space if the technician is unfamiliar on the way. So in this instance, I could filter my spaces and look at just at my location tree for just the ones that are in my office. And I then get a system overall summary. So what's my room name? Where is the room? Is the room in use or not? And also, are there any alerts that I need to look at? And is it inactive and occupied? Give me some metrics about whether I can take action against that space now or not. So if I click into the boardroom, what you'll see here is I actually get a full list of everything that's in that space. So I can actually come through and see I've got all of the devices that we're monitoring in that space. So everything from the neat bar through to the ceiling microphone. We've got things like managed power strips, as well as network switches in this space. So we can see all of that information at a high level summary. We can also change this view and get information about those assets. So for example, I could pull up the asset tab and actually see all of the information about the serial numbers. And these are built into our drivers, but automatically gathered from the device. So we've simply configured the IP address or how we're going to connect to that device, host name, for example, and it's gathering this information. So for example, serial number, I can look at network status, see the MAC addresses that we're gathering from those devices as well, and pull that into our system automatically. We also give the user the ability to learn about the space, as I mentioned. So for example, we have the ability to upload documentation against a meeting room. So for example, a simple example of this might be a picture of the space. So the technician who maybe has never been to that room before can quickly pull up an image, or the installation manuals, or the line diagrams, to be able to learn how that system should be set up. So when they go to support it, they know what they're looking at, even if they've never been. We do have the ability, as mentioned previously, to go all the way down to device control in the platform. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to look at one of the alerts we have, which is in this space, we're seeing that the NEC display, we've actually got an alert to tell us that video mute is enabled. So we can actually go and resolve that issue. So we're going to click on assets. I'm going to find my display, which you can see down here, and it's also the device that has the alert associated with it. And if I click on this device, what's going to load up is our latest release, which is called Tech Tool in the cloud. And this is the reason it's called that. We used to have Tech Tool on uServer. It's migrated to the cloud. So from here, we can actually see all the information, the live view of the device, essentially. So here we can see the information that we're gathering from the system. So for example, you can see the system is currently powered on. You can see we're currently on source HDMI, but you can see here the key part is we've actually generated an alert because the system video mute is enabled. As a technician, if I have the rights to do so, I've actually got the ability to put this device into edit mode. And if I do this, when I come down, you'll see that I now have control over this device. And with the key piece here being that I can see my display mute, I want to be able to turn this off. And if I change the view, you can see Nicolas currently watching our office, and you'll see straight away that he's managed to I've resolved that issue in that space. The system will now tell me that video mute is off. And from here, I can actually see that the system's now back in working order. That's an example of an alert where we want manual user intervention that we can create, and these are custom definable. However, we also have the ability to define what we would term self-healing, so where the system can detect a fault, and it also knows the steps to put that into a working state again. So for example, we've got self-healing set up on our source. So in our room, we just have a singular neat bar connected to HDMI 1. If the system detects that the source is not on HDMI 1 and it's been changed to something else, it will automatically put that back. So if I come down here and say, let's change this device to DisplayPort, if I show you Nicolas' screen again, what you'll see is the system will change the source. And again, it's going to show there's no input available. Utelogy is now detecting that, and we have set a 5-second delay on that fix. And what you'll see is the system's detected that, and it's now resolving that system and actually putting it back onto the correct input. So that system is resolved without any human interaction. We can see that happen. So if we go to our dashboards, what we're going to see is a couple of things. We'll see that on my alert list, you can see my display mute alert has now disappeared because we resolved that manually. And if I went to my self-healing scenarios, you will see I've actually got the ability to see that my display source has been resolved through self-healing. So you can see my alert count has gone up, and we can actually see that that's happened.
George, we got a few questions before you carry on.
Okay, sure.
Is it possible to manage dashboard between the customer and some external technical resources, like an AV provider? So in other words, can an AV reseller or an IT reseller do remote management on the behalf of its end user?
Absolutely, yes. So the way the system's set up is as a AV provider or managed service provider, you would have an MSP level account, which essentially is an account that sits one level above your customers. That gives you the ability to go and remote into those sites and actually go all the way down to device control if that customer has allowed that for you. So again, it's all permissions based, but you will absolutely have a singular dashboard where you can see the status of all of the customers you are providing support for. And also if they request it, you can obviously go in and control those devices.
Very good. Another question for you. Can you register an unknown product by Utelogy to keep direct access on a unit embedded web page, or just to list assets in a room, even if you are not connected to IP?
Yes, we can. We have the ability to put in devices that aren't connected, as essentially if you're planning to use this as an asset management tool. We have the ability for you to create a fake device in our system where you can fill in serial number, MAC address of that system to actually monitor it or keep track of it, as it were.
Another question from Guillaume. On monitors like Samsung or LG, can we have the screen feedback live? In other words, can we see what's on the screen in the room through the interface?
No, we cannot. So we will be able to monitor those devices through their APIs. However, I know they have the functionality to show the live view within their own platforms. However, due to GDPR regulations or data privacy, we wouldn't capture that data in our platform. The only data we capture is device information, so health status, information about the system. We wouldn't capture live screenshots or audio clips from microphones, as an example, or DSPs. It is purely device health information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, no worries. So the final piece I'm going to show you of our platform, and this is really, obviously the alerting is proactive because it's notifying you before a user is in that space in most cases. The Automate is actually where we can do our automated room checks. So within the platform, we have the ability, and I see it used typically in two ways. Firstly, power saving, so turning devices on in the morning and off at night, and then being able to complete overnight room checks, so turning the system on in the middle of the night and performing a series of checks based on the equipment in that space. So to be able to complete a power cycle of that equipment, I'm going to show you a very simple example and we'll work up. To turn a device on in the morning, we want to do more than just a fire and forget command. We want to check all the devices are online and connected in that room, because essentially if the device is not connected to the internet, we want to fail the script before it begins. We want to say that, there's issues in the space. We'll still continue with the script, but we need to alert the technician that a device is not connected the way that it should be. We simply send that power on command to those devices by configuring a macro. And then the intelligence comes in here where we can say, we actually want to now wait 60 seconds, so to allow that screen to switch on. And then we're actually going to check that the display power was equal to on. If that condition was not met, we're going to essentially generate an error that says we tried to turn the system on first thing in the morning. That failed, and actually we need to tell a technician so he can go and remote to that space first, see if he can resolve it. If not, potentially visit that room and turn that system on so it's ready for the first meetings of the day. If we have a look at a more complicated test, and we can actually run this one live, and we'll do that for you, we have the ability to do an overnight room check, and specifically, again, follows the same premise as the power on. We're going to check that all of the systems are online and connected. We're going to turn the system on. We're then going to start an audio check. So essentially, we are going to generate a test tone in this space. And the key part to this being that when that test tone is playing out of the speakers, we want to listen on the microphone and check that we're receiving a decibel level of 45 decibels or greater. This can tell us, depending on the equipment in that space, if the speakers are working, the DSP is working, the microphone, the codec, that they're all receiving or playing audio the way that they should be. So if we go to the automated schedule, we actually set the schedule for when we want these to run. So you can see we run the overnight room check here, 4 a.m. daily, Monday to Friday. However, we actually have the ability to click run now. So if I click run now and Nicola starts sharing his audio, what we will see, essentially, the screen's already on because it's running in the middle of the day. But what we'll see essentially is it will try and turn the screen on, which it's going to complete. And then 10 seconds later, it's actually going to generate a test tone in that space, which you should be able to hear. Can you hear that? Yes, maybe turn that off, Nicola. It's quite annoying. You can, yeah, turn that off. Thank you. So that's now playing in that space. It's generating the test tone. And if we head to our test log, we can actually see what's happening. So if I sort by the one running most recently, you can see that one is currently in progress because that test is still taking place. Oh, sorry, yeah, share my screen. So here's the test log. You can see the one that's in progress. If I look at the one that ran at 4 a.m. Local time, I can actually click in and view this test. And you can see this ran at 4th of June at 4 a.m. It took 3 minutes and 9 seconds to complete. And if I come down, you can see we processed one room, we passed one room with 0 errors. And we can look at the results of this. We can see everything was online and connected. We sent the power on command. We started the test tone. And the critical bit is we wanted 45 decibels or greater. We actually got 60, so this check passed. And essentially, we know that this room's ready for use in the space today. We then, because this is running in the middle of the night and due to our power saving initiative, we checked that the screen was turned on earlier in the script. We turn it back off and then we wait 60 seconds, check that it's gone off. And again, if I finally show you Nicola's screen, you can see that that screen has now gone off and it's now working the way that it should be. Okay. Are there any questions?
No questions. I think everybody's just like I am, speechless. Some questions may be coming. So it is very interesting. A question, how does that work for an integrator? I mean, how do we install it? I mean, surely we need to have a lot of information before we do a deployment. We need to have the serial numbers, the MAC address of the products we want to populate the platform with.
No, that's not the case. Essentially, to onboard a system, we actually just need the IP address or host name of that system. There needs to be a driver present, which again, we already have a large driver library of supported integrations. If not, we create those for the product. And then we also, if the device requires authentication of the API, we will need that username and password to be entered to our system. Beyond that, everything else is done by the platform and the system will be set up to be monitored.
Okay, very good. I guess we are getting now to the to the end of this webinar. It's been a very good hour in your company, Jonathan, Luc, and George. Thank you very much to everyone joining us today. Merci à tous de nous avoir rejoints aujourd'hui. Hein?
We have a last question from Karim.
Okay, George. The question is, can you precise what are the technical prerequirements to deploy this Utelogy monitoring and managing solution?
So we actually have a great document which we would point all new customers or prospective customers to, called our Deployment Readiness Guide. In this guide, it specifies and outlines every requirement and prerequisite we need to be completed. There's not a long list, but there are some, network requirements, ports, as well as sort of security pieces that we would need to verify with the client. We can absolutely send this over to you, but again, Nicolas and Luc have access to this document as well.
Absolument. Donc, si vous avez besoin d'informations sur le déploiement réseau, sur le déploiement de MTR, le déploiement d'Utelogy de façon générale, hein, sur les choses à valider avant d'installer cette solution, n'hésitez pas à me contacter. Je vous fournirai les éléments demandés. En attendant, je vous remercie tous d'être aussi nombreux ce matin en notre compagnie. J'espère que ce webinaire vous aura plu. Vous pourrez retrouver cette rediffusion sur YouTube en version sous-titrée en français. Vous pourrez ainsi découvrir la mise à jour de YouTube par l'IA de la traduction qui est fabuleuse. Donc, j'espère que ça marchera bien. En attendant, je vous souhaite à tous une très belle journée et je vous dis à bientôt. Over to you, guys, to say goodbye, maybe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup à tous. Bonne journée. Merci.
Bonne journée.
Gracias.